shut up and sit down.
So usually at this point I do my usual intro, but you know what? This week we have somebody that we have wanted from day one on the show, and he's giggling already. So he is. Ash,
I'm actually been nervous with it, but we film these sort of 3 back to back normally, and we've left this one last purposefully because I'm slightly nervous. But yeah, I'm so stoked. It's the first time he's been in a tiki bar, although he said he's going to be here all the time. But yeah, delighted to have Ricky Martin in here. I had the pleasure of working with you at one point, Ricky, so it's real. It's been brilliant knowing you. And there's a lovely Sexton Old Fashioned. So that's made with Sexton whiskey just up the road, single malt whiskey with a bit of orange bitters, a little bit of sugar, and wee Chinese ice ball. So yeah, delighted to have you along, man, and stoked.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, this is Old Fashioned is genuinely my favourite drink, so thank you, and happy birthday.
Oh, cheers, thank you.
Yes, it's Ash's birthday today, and Ricky, usually at the start of a Tiki session, I'd be like, it's great to see you, I haven't seen you in ages, but we were actually out together on Friday night, and it was a good night's crack, so it was. We're going to go on a bit of a journey tonight. We're going to chat about loads of things, but there's only one place I can start, and it's probably the one thing that annoys you most in your life. Ricky Martin, the name.
Yeah.
And I only discovered recently as well, your brother's called Chris Martin as well. So growing up with the name like Ricky Martin, whenever La Vida Loca came out, were you just like sickened with it?
Yeah, like at the start it was class. Like we had this, how I first heard of Ricky Martin was, because it was weird, before Ricky Martin became famous, everyone still called me Ricky Martin rather than Ricky, which is weird. And we had a rugby team over from Argentina playing Korean Inst, and they were all wetting themselves that there was someone called Ricky Martin. And then I went to university, and that was just when he became famous. So first year at university was awesome, because I was like, all was class, I'm Ricky Martin. And, but yeah, just the arse got well and truly ripped out of it. So
I don't think it helped you wore white chinos and flowery shirts. Sort of helped things.
So Ricky, me and you go back a fair amount of years now. I think we first met with the White Collar Boxing.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And my memory of you at the White Collar Boxing was you were quite nervous about it at the start, and it wasn't something that came easy to you. So it wasn't. So how did you find that as a process, as an event that was put on?
Well, I mean, it was a roller coaster. Like at the start, my friend Lexi Halliday had done it the year before, and so he had said, if I do it, will you do it next year? So, and I was like, I'm not an aggressive person at all. And then I thought, well, if I get into the ring, I bet you the first time someone hits me, it releases this. This beast. And then the first time we were in the ring, I was fighting that guy, big rugby guy called Paul. And I just remember the Spike going, round one or whatever. He just came over and fucking punched me as hard as he could in the face. And I wasn't prepared for it at all. I was just like, stop. But yeah, so it took me ages to get into it. And then, but yeah, over the weeks, got more into it. I loved it. Loved the training. It's the fittest I've ever been in my life by a million miles.
It's serious training, isn't it? It's like, we because we had Rob on before as well, Rob Skelly from the Edge Water Sports, and Rob was my business partner at that time, but he also took part in it because I was obviously the good looking one in the company, so also Rob stepped up and took part in it. Yeah, right. But he was saying like there's no fitness like boxing fitness. It
was, honestly, man, it was unreal. And like we were training with Spike in Ballymoney, and he was class. He was so professional, with it all. And I took it really seriously because I was didn't want to be humiliated in front of so many people. I obviously wanted to win the fight, but even if I lost the fight, I wanted to put on a decent performance of myself, sort of thing.
You got fight of the night, didn't you? It wasn't just that you won the fight, it was cracker.
Yeah.
It's such a shame because it was such obviously at that point I was making the cocktails and doing the VIP reception, and when was the last one you did? And was there a physical reason why you stopped?
So we took it to Cookstown, and Cookstown was the last one we did. So we had done 3 or 4 in Kelly's, and we took it to Cookstown, and it was just a different ball game down there. Like the hotel we held it in Cookstown, the Cookstown event still raised a lot of money for charity, and it was a good event. But the hotel we held it in, we found out the week before, had a white collar boxing event in it, and didn't even tell us. You know,
Right.
And it got to the stage we became the biggest white collar boxing event in the UK at one stage, and then it became the point that every GAA club, every football club, every hockey club started doing white collar boxing events. And I can't speak about all of them, but some of them were doing it that people were amateurs that had never fought before were going up against people that had fought before, and people were getting trained by their mates in garages and stuff. And we sort of felt, because we were at that level, that if anybody got seriously hurt in another event, we would sort of be tarnished with that, if you know what I mean. And at the end of it, we had raised like £76,000 for charity, which is a great amount of money, you know. And we thought, you know what? Took it to Cookstown. The Cookstown events sort of faded a wee bit, and we're like, do you know what? We think our time for doing those events has happened. But we had Stephen McConnell on recently, and he was saying like he was in the first year, and that was 10 years ago, coming up to 11 years ago, and I can't believe it's that long ago.
It's such a shame that it's like, it was such an awesome event, and like the sort of behind the scenes, out sort of blowing smoke up your ass. The way it was ran and organised and filmed, and the coordination, so many different clubs and people involved, it was so impressive. And you know, the night at Kelly's, I mean, like there was like. How many people were at it? Like 1,000 people?
There's 1,200 people, 12 to 1,500 people in it, and because we opened the doors at 6 o'clock, I remember two things. Charlie Maguire said to me that they had to get extra beer brought in from the Macro Boy because they ran out of beer. Because obviously Lush wouldn't be a huge beer drinking night, if you know what I mean. And then Colin Hamilton told me that he had a taxi driver ring him at 11:30 on a Sunday night, going, mate, you need to get me tickets for this event. We were selling the events out within 30 minutes, and like 1,500 tickets at 30 quid a head or whatever.
I was having mates, like honestly, like 20 minutes before my fight started, ringing me going, all right man, how's it going? Any chance you get me? I was like, I'm preoccupied.
The funniest one was, I went out the back fire escapes of Lush to get something out of the van, and the door closed behind me, and I banged on the van, on the door. And a bouncer opened the door. He's like, what do you want? I says, oh, it's my event. He goes, sure it is, son, just close the door on me. So I had to walk the whole way around the whole hotel, back round, in through the front door of Lush and back in again. So coming off the back of the white collar boxing, then I did a couple of surf lessons with you, and I then proceeded to punch you in the face without any boxing gloves on in the water one day. So yeah, that was Ricky was teaching me how to paddle, except I was doing old windmill arms, and Ricky was in front of me, and I nailed him straight in the face. So that, you know,
a proper punch, actually.
So weirdly, the next time I came for a lesson, you and Jules were down at the beach, and the sun was out, and he's like, here, listen, if you want, just take the board out. I'll stay here with Jules. I was like, yeah, no worries. Like, so you run a live surf school, and that's now expanded into Live Adventures. So talk us through that process, because you lived away and then you moved back, and you took over Alive, and that's been running, and you've had a great season this season. So talk us through the sort of history of Alive.
Yeah, cool. So Alive was started originally by Brian McCauley, who is a sort of bodyboarding legend from Ballybogey of all places.
Yep.
And so me and Brian went surfing, like a sort of round the world surf trip after we finished university, which was awesome. Went sort of, well, around the world.
Yeah.
And whenever we came back, I moved back to Glasgow, which is where I'd gone to uni, and Brian moved here and started Northern Ireland's first ever surf school, which was Alive.
First ever, wow.
Yeah,
cool.
Which was Alive. Other places were doing, like, you know, sort of ad hoc lessons or whatever. It was the first sort of proper surf school. And so he was doing that, and then I ended up moving to Australia with my now wife Jules. And when we came back from Australia, we were there for about 5 years and came back, and we were only going to come back for about 6 months. And at that stage, Brian had moved to London, met a girl, moved to London, and said, would you want to run the surf school for me for a summer? and I took a couple of surf lessons, and I was just like, this is what I want to do. Like I was doing, Australia was great, but I was doing recruitment into investment banking, and I hated it.
Did you have to wear a suit?
I
can't picture you doing a 9-to-5 job in a suit. I really can't.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, yeah.
You struggle with that thought now as well?
Oh, big time. I couldn't go back to it in a million years. And in a suit in Australia, we're going to be 45 degrees and you're walking about in a suit. So anyway, I took a couple of surf lessons. I was like, that's what I want to do. And Brian had made his home in London, so I bought the school off him, and it sort of went from there. So we were just doing surf lessons, and it was great. And I just decided to try and expand into other activities and try and sort of broaden the business out a bit.
So what are those other activities now that you offer?
So we do kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, surfing. We're just about to launch a scavenger hunt app. We do like bodyboarding, beach games, but our new big thing are electric bikes. So we rent out these absolute premium German electric bikes. They sort of, they're called Reese and Miller. They're sort of the absolute cream of the crop. And it's awesome. So I've actually got a building and just finished renovating in Portrush at the minute. We're going to be hiring the bikes and stuff. And it's good, man. It's exciting.
I have to say that, like, I've done various things with Alive as a customer of yours. And like we had Hanno on in the first season of the Tiki Sessions, and he took us out paddleboarding, and it's a memory that as long as I have my mind and I'm alive, it's a memory that'll stay with me. We were out paddleboarding and there's dolphins swimming around us.
Yeah, Ricky arranges that for everyone.
Yeah, I know.
Good,
if you want that experience, just hook Ricky up, like, you know. But it's just, you know, and I don't remember dolphins being about when I was younger, but to be out, and we weren't that far out. We're at West, and we weren't that far out, and we were paddleboarding. Beautiful morning. It was my wife and my sister-in-law, and there's dolphins swimming about us, and like money can't buy that experience. You know what I mean? And it's phenomenal, and we're very lucky. And we were talking about what makes a good business, be it a surf school, a bar, or whatever, and it comes down to customer service, and you're very lucky with your staff as well, so you are. And Ash, you used to be involved.
I wouldn't say it's luck, because I think you're very good at getting the right sort of people, and it's not necessarily, well, it's like where they're going to fit within your own values and your own business and what you want. And I always remember like the season I was working there, like I was really indexed into trying to get TripAdvisor reviews, and I was thinking, right, because I want to please Ricky kind of thing, and it's,
we all want to please Ricky. So you know.
No, you've done a good job in instilling that and getting good staff, and you get them here in quite a transient sort of like job to try and recruit people for, and like the manager you've had, or managers that you've had in place this season, in a really challenging circumstance. Just to step back a wee touch, you'd put in this investment before COVID hit, hadn't you? And like, how did you find that? And then obviously COVID and the madness that COVID brought. How did you cope with all that, man?
Well, it was like well, I mean, I think when you're talking about all this stuff, it's dead important. Excuse me, it's really important to put perspective into it, you know, because it's dead easy to sort of go down a like, woe is me route whenever, like, you know, I'm sitting here in a tiki bar drinking old fashioned, like life is great. Do you know what I mean? So, but it was like, there were periods where it was really hard because you weren't allowed to open with no business, and like so many other businesses, we'd put all their money into the business and sort of fell through the gaps of getting any financial support. So it was tough, but then when it opened up, we were absolutely flat out because no one was going on foreign holidays. You know, everyone had suddenly realised that being cooped up inside, they wanted to be outside doing things. And so it was just nothing, and then just went crazy. So, you know, we've been really, really lucky in a way.
And it's funny because like there's a sort of common theme with most of the Tiki Sessions when we've got business owners and stuff, and the one that I think about an awful lot is Claire Johnson when she was in, and she was talking about, because like hospitality's been one of the hardest hit by a country mile, and in my head Claire's somebody who could have easily just thought, fuck this, I can't do this anymore. And when we asked her that night, she just said it never once entered her head.
I barely got the question out, and she was
just
like,
adamant it's not going to happen. But like, you need a certain type of person to, and you're saying, I'm sure there are dark moments, but you've been through dark moments previously in business, and you've come through them actually maybe battle scarred but stronger, and it's like
totally.
And I think that's the thing for me with when we started talking about the Tiki Sessions, and it's about like quite often you think you're going through these things on your own and no one's ever done it before, but if you reach out and speak to somebody and say, right, I'm struggling with this, I speak to people who have been through it before, and they're quite happy to give that wisdom. And like for me, you are somebody is an entrepreneur by spirit, and a question I've always wanted to ask you is like, what did you want to do at school? Like, what were you always wanting to be in business, or what did you like? Were you want to be an astronaut? Do you want to be a?
Yeah, no. I mean, I had no real idea what I wanted to be at all. I had no plan whatsoever.
Brilliant.
I was just like, all I wanted to do when I was younger was party.
Yeah.
I just absolutely loved it.
Just worked out well, Ricky.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's like, you know.
So I just, I just wanted to, like, you know, I don't know, even when I went to university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just
What did you study, uni?
I did marketing and human resource management.
It's funny, like, because you got sucked into a job, but you're in. You kind of think you're in Sydney, wasn't it? You were working.
Yeah.
In a recruitment company, you kind of think that lifestyle must have been pretty cool. You're probably on a decent wage, having a good party lifestyle, and you think to yourself, "Is this it? Is this life?" And then.
Well, the weird thing was, so when we were in Sydney, it's sort of like if you were going to write out the list of things that you want from life, we had every one of them. You know, like we're well paid. You know, lived in Bondi Beach in a nice apartment. You know, you have barbecues every night, and everything was all the boxes were ticked. But there was something like not there, and it was like I didn't like my job. You know, I didn't like working in recruitment, and I think that if you don't like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't matter where you are. Like, that made everything much better.
Yeah.
But actually, you need to, like, whenever I came back and I started doing the surf school, I can remember, like, just seeing, like, dealing with happy people. Like, you know, people were coming surfing, and they were... First of all, they were happy when they arrived because they were excited about what they were about to do. And then after we had a surf lesson, they actually left happier. And you were making people happier. It was awesome. And then we started looking at, we started doing like surf lessons with groups with autism or the Down Syndrome Association, and or groups from like taking kids from areas that they have very little. Like we have grew up living the dream. Like we are so spoiled around here. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, really like properly spoiled. And it's very easy to forget that the vast majority of the world is not like that. So then suddenly you have these kids coming surfing going like consistently saying, this is the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Brilliant.
And you're just like, you're just buzzing. Do you know what I mean? It's class.
You're changing people's lives, and do you know what? Like, and I was talking to you about this on Friday night as well. So my daughter Grace is 6.5, only learning to swim, and we signed her up to your surf school because, and I'm sure Ash, you're the same. I'm very adamant that if we live by the sea, our children need to have experience in the sea, need to learn the dangers of the sea, need to learn the enjoyment of the sea. But you know, people that don't embrace that, I think they really need to, because you know we have that such great resource there. So Grace came and did your summer surf school, and you were very kind, and Grace was allowed to take part, and Hannah looked after us and stuff like that. And Grace couldn't swim, and on her first day, her and her wee mate, the two of them, were crying their eyes out whenever your staff were taking them down to the beach. And I was just like...
On the way down to the beach?
On the way down to the beach. And I was like, just go, you know, trying to be that tough father and, you know, go, you'll enjoy yourself. And she was like really holding on to my hand. She's like, Daddy, I'm scared. I'm like, you'll enjoy it. Fast forward 2 hours. She's already standing up on a surfboard. Her first go, she stood up on a surfboard. Like, she's a better surfer than me within 30 minutes. Like, and fast forward 2 hours, and her and her friend were the last two out of the water. The staff end up having 2 girls with those 2 6-year-olds every day for a week, mentoring those 2 6-year-olds, teaching them about the jellyfish that were in the water, playing games with them in the shallows, teaching them how to get up on the board, teaching them how to carry the board. And every day Grace got a wee bit deeper in the water, and her confidence grew. And she's learning to swim at the moment, so she is in lessons and stuff like that. But whenever the week ended She's like, Dad, can I do this next week?
Class.
And she absolutely loved it. And it came down to two things really. One is the activity, because surfing and anything to do with water that we always talk about is great. But it came down to the way your staff behaved and the way your staff looked after them. And it wasn't just my girl and her mate, it was the teenagers that were in the same group as well. And the staff just knew how to treat people and knew how to get the best out of them and knew how to coax the ones that were a bit nervous. So, Ricky, as a business owner with the surf school, if you can take anything out of that customer service is phenomenal that you had this summer. And we can't thank you enough for that.
Well, that's awesome, but it's something that I work so hard on, because like, as far as whether you're going for a surfing lesson or whitewater rafting or going to a bar, whatever it is, like your product's the same. You know, like my product's the same as every other surf school globally, really. Yeah. And so the difference is the people. So like I just focus. Obviously you have to have your qualifications in place to be allowed to work in the lessons. Once you've got the qualifications in place, I'm not really bothered. If you're qualified, I don't care. I don't look for, I need the best surfer to be teaching. I want the best person. And because that person needs to be able to speak to a wee girl that's crying, and then in their next lesson be dealing with a stag party. And then, you know, and all you're really looking for is someone who's nice, kind, can communicate. It's not complicated, do you know what I mean? But yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm stoked with that feedback.
But we're sorry, Ash. We're also seeing, you know, the likes of Gavin Sandry as well, and I know Gavin through the Scouts, and I used to be Gavin's Scout leader and all, and I'm seeing, and we were talking about this as well on Friday night. I'm seeing a confidence in him as a young person through working with yourself, which is priceless for him, and that confidence that he's built working in your organisation over the summer or whatever will stay with him for a long, long time as well.
Oh, big time! And he was actually one of the first people I ever taught how to surf.
Brilliant.
He was like 6 years old or something. He's got a photo of him and his brother, and his dad took them out, and I'm in the background cheering, and they're both coming in. And now he's a surfing instructor in the school, and it happened with Hannah Ritchie, Meg Ritchie as well. Came up, they learned how to surf through the school. So yeah, it's cool, and then you see them go on, and it does, like, because you see, like, if you're 18, 19 years old and suddenly you're holding court for a group of 30 people and they're all looking at you, and you know that you're learning a lot of life skills through that. So no, it's awesome. I'm so proud of my team, and yeah, it's class.
I mean, not blowing smoke up your arse now, but the fact that I've worked for you in two different capacities, as a surf instructor and at Skunkworks, and like, I often say that I have learned more from bad managers than I have from good managers, but you're probably the exception. And the fact that, like, you will give people enough rope, like staff enough rope to maybe make a mistake, but learn from that mistake. And like, it's as I say, it's been great working with you, but it must be hard, like, to give. There's a few examples that I could say, probably not on camera here, but like you trust people an awful lot, and you never ever. That never fades. Like, I don't know how you do it, and like, is it a conscious thing, or is it just something, like, do you focus on it, and do you sit down and think, right, such and such needs a bit of work, or is it just something that comes naturally to you? Or
I think I'm quite a good judge of character and what people are capable of, and I get it wrong, obviously sometimes, but a lot of the time I get it right. And then what happens is there's maybe a part of the business that I was doing myself that I've then asked somebody else to do, and giving them the ownership of it, and they just flourish. And what that means is I don't need to do that anymore as well. So, you know, like, everyone's a winner from it.
And I think that's when you've got a really highly functional team, it's trust, and that you need to have them to like, because everyone has different strengths, and some, like, it's just, yeah, without blowing smoke up your arse, well done, you do a great job.
Thank you.
And sort of what advice, this is the whole thing about, like, what advice would you give, for me, for example, trying to lead a team in here and or a young person who wants to come up with an idea on their own. Let's go with that actually instead. You've got an idea, you are obviously quite entrepreneurial. What advice would you give someone out there who's got an idea and wants to go for it?
I think like one of the things would be, like, have the balls to explore it, first of all, for sure. You know, like, I think at the minute, you know, I think there's a big, sorry, I'm sort of going off on a tangent here. but the university route for me at the minute is not a particularly attractive route. You know, like I went down it, and you see for life, awesome. Me, like all my, like half of my closest friends are from I met at university. So from a life experience, brilliant. But also we didn't pay for university. So, you know, like if I was, would I have said, well, was it worth coming out of Strathclyde University with a marketing degree? No. You know, like I'd learned, genuinely I've never applied anything that I learned in that degree to real life ever. It was pointless. But it was class crack. But now if you're a young person and you've got an idea, there's so many opportunities to promote that idea in the world that we live in, and there's so much help available, and especially in Northern Ireland. We've got these resources that you don't have anywhere else. We've got Invest Northern Ireland. We've also got a community in Skunkworks, which I'm sure we'll go on and talk about. We got so much help from people who were so stoked to see us doing what we were doing. Like, you know, engineering companies, individual people, you know, business people just reaching out. It's a very open place that we've got here. There's a lot of opportunity for help, advice, funding, and so I would say go for it. You know, be open and friendly. Speak to as many people as you can. Try and get as much help as you can, and take advice from people that have done it before, and then just go for it.
Yeah.
You know?
See, Ricky, this is a great thing that you're saying, and we always talk about this, and we talk about the help that businesses get from other businesses around here. I spoke to you one night in Port Stewart, and I was like, we were just setting up Rawee, and I was like, Ricky, listen, is there any way if I get 5,000 flyers printed that I could leave them in your van, and whenever you have customers in, whenever they finish, hand them out a flyer? And Ricky was like, no. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, I want to do something better than that. He's like, I don't want you just having to, you know, me hand out flyers for you. And from that conversation, we ended up doing your crew uniform this summer, which was your t-shirts, hoodies, beanies, and your beach flags, and
Which were awesome, by the way.
thank you very much. And you know, you were kind enough to let us have our logo on that as well. And you know, with my daughter going through the surf school, and with me being down at West the whole time and stuff like that, the amount of people that went through that was phenomenal exposure for us. So thank you for that, you know, first of all. But it just, again, you're another person that, and we've had other conversations, and you're another person that's just like, literally, whatever I can do to help, just ask and I'll do it, and you don't want anything in return. And I think that's a great thing about the North Coast and North Coast businesses, is that there's so many people like that are just totally stoked to see other companies doing well, whether they're in the same market or not. We had the Cata Brewery on before that are doing phenomenal things, you know, and their community run brewery, and it's great to see them doing well. And if people ask for help, like if I walked up to you tomorrow and says, Ricky, I've got this idea, do you mind if I run it past you? You'd be like, yeah, sure, no, whatever, you know.
100%. And I'm wary of mentioning anybody's name in this chat, because there's so many people who have helped that I wouldn't want by mentioning someone's name to sound like I've not mentioned someone else. But someone who sticks out for me massively with that is John Armstrong from Armstrong Medical.
Massively.
Flip's sake. So John, whenever we started off, I didn't know John. How I met John was we were doing a presentation to local businesses. If you had an idea and they could give money, and we were designing a surfboard for people in wheelchairs that could use a surfboard, and so John, along with a couple of other local business people, put money into it and allowed us to build our prototype. But then I got to know him, and you know, like he brought us around the factory. Yep. He, you know, came to our factory, just like such a nice guy. But he was just so stoked to see people giving it a go.
Totally.
Yeah, it was class.
And that's what Pete Stewart said as well. And I'll speak a wee bit about John in a wee second. But Pete Stewart, we asked him, what advice would you give any young person that has an idea? Is like, go for it. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
You know, what is the worst that can happen?
I think you learn more from mistakes than you do from actual
100%.
success, isn't
100%.
it?
So John Armstrong, I grew up with Ross and Nigel, so I did, and John started his business in a garden shed in Burnside Road, and I remember John speaking at the Causeway Chamber Awards one year. I was filming at it, and John by that stage was running a multi-million-pound company, hugely successful company, with its headquarters still in Coleraine on the North Coast. and it was a medical company. And he said in a speech at the Business Awards that he had come, and I'll never forget this, he had come up with the cure for all illness. And he says it's been called being self-employed. And he says, because if I don't work, I don't get paid. And do you know what? That has stuck with me. And that's made me a bit of a workaholic as well, if you know what I mean. And if anybody that knows me knows I'm never not trying to do stuff, if you know. So yourself and Ash were mentioning there about Skunkworks. So Skunkworks I know a little bit about. First of all, what was Skunkworks and how did you come up with the name?
Okay, so Ash was in the thick of it with us, so anytime you want to chip in. But so basically, long story short, surfboards for the soft surfboards that surf schools use fall apart really easily.
Yeah.
And so my brother was round in my garage one night helping me glue boards together, and he was like, "Why aren't you buying better boards?" And I said, "Well, these are the best boards." And he said, "Well, I reckon we could work out a way of doing it." He worked out that it was glue that was making them fall apart and designed a new way of making boards that didn't involve sticking them together with glue. That was the basic idea.
Okay.
And so we sort of started off with, we were literally just two guys in my garage, like it was sort of with that idea, and it sort of went on from there. And it's a pretty full-on story.
Like I mean, it was brilliant, and like we learned an awful lot of lessons along the way. Top line headline stuff is that we ended up selling a surfboard to UK and Ireland, to the Netherlands, to Spain, Portugal, France, set up distribution agreements in Morocco, and it was class. Things were going really well, and we were on track for hitting our forecasts. And basically, the competitors were 3 Asian companies who started offering 12 months interest free or 12 months credit, which meant that all our forecasted orders were sort of plummeted overnight. And at the same time, we had done a very successful crowdfunding campaign to launch in North America and raised $500,000 to do that. And like you and Chris had put your heart and soul into it, and it was just it was a real tough one. But like I mean, again, when I was saying earlier about being battle scarred, for me, I learned an awful lot from you, from Chris, from the whole business, and people still talk about it. You still surf the bloody boards, like your boards are and they are robust surfboards.
I bought boards, the boards that inspired us to start it, I bought recently, and then they were getting wrecked after the first lesson, and we've got our boards after 5 years. So I mean, like we went from having this idea to, and I won't mention anyone's name in this in case they don't want their name mentioned, but they all know who I'm talking about. But like we had two of our friends started with us from the very start, and they worked for nothing for a year. We all worked for nothing. We ended up, we had a factory. We never wanted to produce in China, so we had a factory in Korean. We employed, I think, 22 people at the height of it. Do you know what was awesome? The whole story was brilliant, and unfortunately it didn't work out. And like basically probably some of the happiest times of my life, and also some of the absolute worst times of my life, were part of that story. Like I mean, it was brilliant and absolutely horrendous. You know.
Let's talk Richard Branson then. So there's a couple of things I want to know about Richard Branson, and then we'll get onto the crowdfunding, because that really interests me. But tell us about the competition, or the pitching competition, was it, for Richard Branson?
So basically we had, between myself, Chris, and these two friends, we got funding from Invest Northern Ireland. We had a small factory, and we got to the point where those guys, I have no engineering capabilities at all, but those guys from a non-engineering background had built like this machinery with no money at all really, and had started to build these prototypes. And anyway, we needed a proper engineer, so we had this guy that we met, and we needed to find enough money for his salary, and so we didn't have any money. And then Richard Branson announced, I was watching the Channel 4 News one night, and after it was over, there was like Pitch to Rich competition was announced, and it was an opportunity to pitch to Richard Branson, and one of the prizes was you could win £40,000, and that's exactly what we were looking for. Yeah. And so, like, sounds dead cheesy, but basically rang up Chris, and I was like, that, we're sorted. And he was like, why? And I was like,
it's all done.
Richard Branson's launched the competition, £40,000, we'll enter it, win it, get the £40,000, employ an engineer, and we're off. And so we went for it. We ended up not winning it, but we came second.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was cool. Like there was 897 companies from across UK and Ireland entered our category, and we came second. So we went to London, and it was really cool. It was one of the guys' 21st at the same time. So we went over, awesome. Pitched to Richard Branson and like 4 or 5 other guests, and
I'm sure that was pretty nerve-wracking, like.
It was weird. Like,
but Richard seems to be quite, Richard as if I know him well, but he seems to be quite a bohemian, sort of chilled sort of guy, but he's obviously pretty clued in to be where he's at.
Yeah, I mean, if
the cameras weren't rolling, I know you'd say.
No, he is definitely clued in, I would say.
I was more excited. Sorry, just to give you time.
Sorry, get you out of that question.
I was more excited by one of the judges was David Gandy. I couldn't believe him. He was the man.
You were infatuated with David Gandy. Like that is.
He's the ultimate man.
Yeah.
I'm a happily married man to a wife who I love to pieces, but I think David Gandy's up there.
He was a really nice guy.
I'm saving you out here.
He was a really nice guy. Yeah.
So coming off the back of that, then you obviously came second. That gave you a push or give you publicity coming off the back of it? Did other people approach you at that stage?
Yeah, so that's how we got our main investors on board. So they basically had got in touch. They'd followed the campaign. There's a lot of PR involved around it, so they'd followed the campaign, and that's where we ended up getting investment that allowed us to move forward.
Brilliant. So what was the ultimate plan for Skunkworks then? Just because I sort of think about it and I go, right, so you're making a board that's going to be a lot more robust than other surfboards. That obviously then gives that a longer lifespan of the board, which then gives you less of a turnover with regards to people buying boards off you. So what was the actual long-term hopes or plans for Skunkworks?
Well, the idea was that we spoke, so all their job was to work out how to make the surfboards, and my job at the start, and then Ash's job. So Ash was Ash was in charge of sales, so it's his fault. So we spent a lot of time speaking to surf schools, like hundreds and hundreds of surf schools, and we're asking them, what? So the idea was that while each surf school might buy their boards off us less, that more surf schools would buy our boards off us, but then also what a lot of surf schools do is they sell their boards off every year to customers, so that their boards are always looking sort of fresh and new.
Yeah, there's also a huge environmental impact as well, because most of the boards are polystyrene based. The core are polystyrene, so they end up in landfill. Yeah, doesn't degrade over time. These were fully recyclable, and once they do finally come to the end of their lifespan, everything could be stripped apart and fully recycled, which for a lot of the guys who bought into us, that was the big hook for them, because they were fed up with all the broken boards, ended up in landfill. And
I see that now. There's a lot of beaches around Cornwall and stuff are now starting to ban bodyboards and stuff like that because
bodyboards are the worst, because see cheap bodyboards, they're just awful. They're so cheap, they're so fragile. People use them once. They're like plastic straws.
In Hillcrest or in Lidl or whatever it is, and they're tiny little. They're almost like boys that you float with.
$14.99
and it's like a disposable economy where people just buy it once, they throw it away, and that's it.
Yeah, and not only is it only used once and thrown away, it's made and then shipped across the entire globe to get here.
From China,
they're shocking. Yeah, we were over in UK with the family on a holiday at the start of the summer, which was really cool, and they've got bodyboard recycling bins now on the beaches, so you can throw the bodyboards in it. I thought it was a pretty good idea. It'd be cool to get something like that going.
If North Coast World Earth, who's great at the moment, that would be a great idea.
They are class, but
they're awesome, aren't they? Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a bit of a hard question then, if you don't mind, and we want to keep this kind of upbeat, but we also want to talk about struggles and how you overcome struggles.
Sure.
Skunkworks obviously did really, really well and had the potential to do really well, and then for the reasons that you discussed, it just didn't work out. How did that affect you?
Unbelievably negatively.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
So whenever we started Skunkworks, I was doing triathlons.
Oh, wow,
And whenever
really?
we ended Skunkworks, I was like nearly 16 stone.
Yeah.
And you know, like that in itself, you know, sort of shows like the stress. Do you know what? There was lots of different types of stress involved in it. Like one of them was we built up this awesome team.
Yeah.
Like it was class, wasn't it?
It was-
Like,
do you know? And again, like, sorry, just going back to how you created that team and how you and Chris created that team. Like we would have had, and like this is when things were going well, so we weren't just fanning about all the time, but we would have had, like, if we worked hard and we hit certain targets, we'd have had yoga sessions. Like EB would have come in and done yoga with us, and like
So it's like a whole Google-esque Apple
it
sort
was
of...
class, man, and we
Wow.
had like this AstroTurf porch, like, and there was videos of surfing playing, and people came in, and it was a cool vibe. People worked fucking hard, but it was a cool vibe
Really
as well.
hard.
Like we worked hard and we played hard, and it was a lovely, lovely culture. Like I don't think it's something I'm trying to cultivate in here with my very small team, but it's you guys nailed it. And yes, it was stressful, and the stress fell on you and Chris an awful lot, and we did try our best to take on what we could. But like it was just as like, I don't know, would you if you had a crystal ball, would you do it again?
do you know what, man? I have asked myself that question so many times, and I don't know how to answer it because
You have to do it again, man.
it
You can't
was
regret
no,
it.
no. I think I would do it again. But you see, to put yourself knowingly put yourself through that again is tough because like the pressure of all these amazing people that were working with us to try and do this, and there were people like, I mean, it was just everyone was overworked, underpaid, you know, but did it because they really enjoyed. They were all part of something. We were doing something. It sounds so
And they
cheesy,
believed
but
in it
it
as
really
well.
was like that. But you see the stress of them not wanting people to lose their jobs, and like, see when it got to the point where there was before it actually ended, and we got to the point where we had to start making people redundant. That was one of the worst. That was easily one of the worst times of my entire life.
Because that's not just you, that's other people's lives.
Yeah,
And they
it
were all
was-
mates too.
It was
Like
horrendous.
as much as they were colleagues, they were mates. And it's,
Yeah, and see, sitting down, you've got to work. Honestly, it was
so,
truly
like,
awful.
To take the positives out of it, like I dare say now, in the last 2 years, you're much more aware of your work-life balance. Like when I see you these days, you're juicing for one. Like you're sea swimming. You're not down on the beach every single day of the week, and like I don't think you'd be like that had that not happened, and
No.
had to tilt the balance the other way. If you ask me.
So whenever it actually ended, it didn't end for me because the administration process
Drags
took
on.
ages,
Yeah.
and I was 100% like this close to a nervous breakdown, no question about it, and then. I just took time off work. You know, I didn't work for months. Just had to get my head straight again. And then other things like, you know, you're going, oh, my children are 5 years older than they were a minute ago. And like there's a lot of reality, and so I just focused really hard on trying to make sure that I was putting myself and my life, my family's life first, and then work second. But they're so intertwined, but you have to keep, it's like constantly reminded, and I fall back into it because, you know, I do find myself then suddenly taking on too much again. I've done it again recently, and again, I've just cut it all back. But you see now, like I feel genuinely really happy now. You know, and I'm
like from my point of view, like you get certain times in your life where you're feeling really low and things are happening, and you know the alarm bells, you know the triggers, and the more you go through that, you start to think, right, something's telling me I need to slow down here, and I need to go and give me some time again.
Yeah,
And
I think it's like an educational thing because, and again, we've spoken about it. I had my what I call my 1.5-year sabbatical that I had to take time off work, and I was trying to do everything, and it all very, very quickly it all just caught up on me, and I had a very down time. And do you know what? I look back on it now, and it's only been really recently, and I've been talking to you about it. You actually put me onto to this app that I truly think has changed me. I've lost over 1.5 stone of weight. My mental health's better. And I look back on it now and I go, It was the most horriblest of times, but I'm glad it happened, because if it didn't happen, I wouldn't be the person that I am now. I wouldn't have the consciousness of going, right, I need to not do that anymore. I need to pick what I want to do. I need to, and I'm the same as you. The old me comes back, and I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's go and do here. Blah blah blah. Let's not worry about the family. Let's go out 7 nights a week and do X, Y, and Z. And then, but I'm getting more conscious now of going, no. I don't want to do that. I want to pull back. I want to spend more time with the family. And I think one thing of coming out of the other side of having bad times, whether it's you, me, or whoever, if you're able to get past that, you do certainly learn a hell of a lot about yourself as a person through that journey. And it is a journey. And to me, I know my mindset is that really crap 1.5, 2 years of my life is now a positive. So it is, I would never want to do it again, but I'm kind of glad in a sort of weird, twisted way that it happened.
Yeah, because I know exactly what you mean, and so about 6 weeks ago, I took on too much and put myself in a position where I just fucking lost my shit one day, like properly lost my shit, and the next day I woke up and I was like, wow. I was like, I promised I'd never put myself in that position again. I clocked it right away, and that day I changed. I stripped everything back that made me do that, because I was like, I'm not going down that route, and also I'm not going to put my family down that route either.
That's the important thing, because it does have a massive effect on the family as well, you know.
Yeah.
And this summer's been great. You've had a blast of a summer, busiest summer ever.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was weird because last year we were totally unprepared for when we came out of lockdown, and it was just mental, wasn't it?
It's gone from 0 to 100 mile an hour. Like, it was just.
And so many people decided that they wanted to be involved in water.
And water.
as well.
And that's what I mean. Like, you go down to West Strand and there's 1,000 people in the sea. You're like, what the hell is going on? And so last year just like sideswiped us. We weren't ready for it. And then this year we were like able to prepare. It was difficult. You weren't able to fully prepare. You didn't know when you're going to get opened up and all this. But it was brilliant. Do you know what? I'm just so stoked to see everyone outside doing stuff. I was like, I had customers and they were coming down and they were like, maybe 60 years old, bit overweight, hadn't, been sitting watching TV for the last 20 years, and they're walking down with a bodyboarding wetsuit on, going, this is class. Yeah. Like, this is cheap. It was just like they were kids again. Yeah. And there's like, I'm not saying it's good COVID happened, obviously, but there has been positives that have come out of it.
We always say that. We say that the whole time, that obviously a hell of a lot of negatives, hell of a lot of tragedy, but again, tiny positives and huge positives that have come out of it, So, looking to the future then, next 12 months, 2 years, what's the plans for live adventures?
One of the biggest things that has affected my life of late is meeting one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life.
But we go way back, Rick.
Yeah. I'm just thinking this is teeing it up for, this should be Jules.
We all know Jules.
I met Jules long ago. Yeah. No, is a woman called Frances Connolly, and Frances is her and her husband Patrick won the lottery. They won 115 million on the lottery. And they are, I know Frances so much better. They're both great, but Frances is one of the most amazing human beings that's ever stepped foot on the face of the earth.
Wow.
And so I got to know her because she actually came in after Skunkworks had gone into administration, and it was done and dusted. I got a phone call from Paddy. And they basically won the lottery as we went into administration. And Paddy rang and offered to help Skunkworks. Right. But it was everything was gone.
It was too late.
And obviously, the market had changed so much that they were trying to resurrect it. So anyway, I said no. They just won 150 million a week ago or something. So anyway, I ended up getting to know Francis, and Francis sponsored or helped fund a project we do, the Wave Project, which
Brilliant
is
project,
an amazing
yeah.
project. And anyway, I got to know Francis really well, and I'm now sitting on the board of her charity. So she's got a charity in England and a charity in Northern Ireland. What these people have done with their money is, I would say it's never been done before. What you know, like the way that they've done it, the people that they've helped, and I couldn't talk highly enough. But anyway, I'm on the board of her charity, so I'm getting to do some really cool stuff there, helping loads of people with, you know, during COVID, or, you know, helping like wee girls that didn't have tablets to study from at home, you know, or helping food banks, all these different things. But now we're supporting lots of different projects, and she has actually helped fund she bought the building that I'm renovating in Portlaoise at the minute.
Yeah.
So the reason that she bought that was because she wanted to enable me to be able to run classes. I would do like communications classes, like trying to teach kids how to communicate properly. So like, you know, one of the big problems I think with young people today is they don't know how to talk, and they get themselves in trouble, as we did when we were younger. But, you know, like I want to try and teach them how to articulate their ideas, how to talk, how to start businesses. If you've got an idea, how do you persuade someone else to get involved in that idea? Or how do you communicate yourself if you're in trouble with the police or your parents or anything like that? So my big thing this year is, there's two things I'm focused on. In this building, I want to start really using it to try and help groups like that.
Yeah.
So we've got showers and changing rooms downstairs. So doing things like bringing groups of kids in, go surfing in the morning, nice relaxed atmosphere, and come back, have a warm shower, come up, have some lunch, and then we run like communications workshops and
Brilliant.
stuff. I think it's going to be awesome. So that's one side, and then the other big thing is that I'm infatuated with these electric bikes. So really trying to start pushing the electric bikes and build Alive. And then, but the other thing that we spoke about was trying to do this all in a way that is where I am spending most of my time actually enjoying my life.
Yeah.
Rather than
I was about to say, I thought
working.
you said you were cutting back.
Yeah,
like,
well,
you're
no,
like, doing this.
Yeah,
But, yeah.
so it is loads. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, all that only works if I get all the right people in place to help me do it. I'm not up for doing all that myself. As we're making sure that I get a really good team around me that allows me to try and do that.
We've had Steve McConnell on previously, and he was saying about, because to me he's somebody who's nailed it, the work-life balance, the family life, the work life. And he just said, like, and I asked him what's the secret, and he just said it's fucking hard work. You know, he didn't say fucking hard work, sorry, paraphrasing. He said it's hard work, and you know, you need to constantly think to yourself, right, what do we need to do this week? What do I need to do? How do I look after myself? How do I look after my family? And then the business as well, and whatever it is. So
Well, Ricky, listen, it's been an absolute honour to have you on tonight. So it has, and I think we're talking about another project with the Tiki Sessions that we might do in the future, and if we do that, you'll definitely be one of the guests that we would like to have on that night as well. We wish you all the best with everything you're doing at the moment. Say hello to Jules for me, because I haven't seen her in a while. I hope next season's just as amazing for you as this season was as well.
Sorry, just...
Oh, he's getting
There you
well
go, well up there.
No, I burped.
Oh, you burped. Aye.
Well done.
Cheers for coming in, man.
No, here,
Cheers.
dude, I am so stoked. I'm so stoked about your
Cheers,
bar.
Josh.
I'm so stoked about your clothing company.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to be here.
Cheers, Dawes.
Thanks a lot.
Exactly. Cheers.